Have you ever been stuck in an argument that just goes around and around in circles? Or maybe you're scrolling through social media and you see two sides just yelling past each other and you know they'll never ever agree. Well, believe it or not, about 2,500 years ago, the Buddha told a story that feels like it was written for us today. It's an incredible guide for understanding why we get so trapped in our own opinions, and, more importantly, how we can get out. Okay, so let's get right into the story. It kicks off with these two guys who are following the Buddha and his monks wherever they go. The first is a spiritual teacher. His name's Suppiya, and he spends all day, every day, just tearing down the Buddha, criticizing his teachings, his followers, everything. And then, walking right there with him is his own student, Brahmā, who's doing the total opposite. He's just singing the Buddha's praises, saying how perfect he is. So you have this walking, talking, nonstop debate. Now, you can imagine the Buddha's monks. They're overhearing all of this. Day in, day out, all they hear is, he's flawed versus he's perfect. Slander versus praise. So they get together and they're talking amongst themselves, just totally baffled by this argument that never ever stops. And it's the natural question, right? It's our first instinct. When you see two people arguing so passionately, you immediately want to figure out, okay, who's right here? Is the critic onto something, or is the supporter just being a blind follower? Who should we believe? So when the Buddha hears his monks debating this, he comes in with an answer that is completely unexpected. He tells them, look, if people criticize me, you shouldn't get angry. And if people praise me, you shouldn't get all happy and excited either. He's totally reframing the problem here. He's not telling them to pick a side. He's telling them to look at their own reaction. He goes on to explain that, even when people praise him for things that seem good, like being an honest person, they're kind of missing the bigger picture. That's all just surface level stuff. The real issue, he says, wasn't about him being good or bad. The real problem is this deep human tendency to get completely hooked on our own points of view. And this is where the teaching just explodes into something fascinating. He wasn't just talking about his two followers arguing. He was talking about a universal trap that our minds fall into. Let's dig into what he meant by this net. So, the Buddha then lays out this incredible map of the mind. He identifies 62, that's right, 62 specific kinds of speculative opinions or views that we humans get tangled up in. And this wasn't some random number. It was like a complete catalog of all the philosophical dead ends that cause arguments and conflict. He basically breaks these 62 views down into two big categories. You've got views about the past, things like, where did I come from? How did the world begin? And then you've got views about the future, like the big one, what happens to me after I die? All the big questions we've been arguing about for, forever. So for example, you've got one camp of views that says the self and the world are eternal. They've always been here, they'll always be here. Then you have the exact opposite camp, arguing no, they are not eternal, and one day they'll be gone. It's a debate that's been raging for thousands of years. And here's another classic trap, the afterlife. So some views say your soul, yourself, continues on after your body dies. And another set of views says, nope, that's it. Death is the end. Annihilation. Again, you have these two polar opposite positions, and really, there's no way to definitively prove either one. And here is the absolute crucial point. The problem isn't having an opinion. The problem is the attachment to it. The Buddha saw that people grab onto their view, hold it up as the one and only absolute truth, and then they dismiss everyone else's perspective as just plain foolish and wrong. Sound familiar? It's basically every online comment section ever. So if we're all caught in these mental traps, how in the world do we get out? Well, the Buddha didn't just offer up a 63rd view to prove all the others wrong. No, he did something way more radical. He offered a way to see the trap itself. The name of this teaching is the Brahmā Net Sutra, and that name is the whole idea in a nutshell. Brahma's net is this powerful image of a vast cosmic net. Every single thread, every knot in that net is a possible point of view. It's an intricate, beautiful, and really dangerous web that our minds can get completely tangled in. And this quote from the text just nails the feeling of being trapped, doesn't it? It says people who are holding on to these 62 views, they're like fish caught in a net. They can swim around, they can dart back and forth, they can argue with the other fish, but they are all still trapped inside the exact same net. They aren't truly free. And that right there, that's the big takeaway. The Buddha's whole path here isn't about finding the one correct thread in the net so you can win the argument.
It's about taking a step back so you can see the entire structure, the net itself. It's about understanding the mechanism of attachment that causes all the conflict in the first place.
So this path to freedom isn't some intellectual game. It's a real psychological shift. First, you've got to recognize your own attachment. Really feel how tightly you're clinging to being right. Second, you start to understand where your views came from and see their limits, that they're just one perspective, not the whole truth. Third, and man, this is the hardest part, we have to practice letting go of that deep emotional need to win. And when you do that, you find this incredible freedom that has nothing to do with the argument at all. So the next time you feel yourself getting pulled into one of those hopeless arguments online or in real life, maybe just for a second, step back and look for the net. And this ancient teaching leaves us all with a pretty challenging question, one to really sit with. In your own life, in your own beliefs, which views are you caught in?